My name is Susie Perez, and I'm with LanguageLine Women. Today, it is my great privilege to introduce you to Heidi. She's going to share some of her experience living with a disability that resulted from a tragic accident. Heidi, welcome.
Thank you for welcoming me. Hello, hello.
During your recovery, the transition from living in the rehab facility to living independently must have been both physically and emotionally challenging. Can you please tell us a bit about your journey toward independence?
Yeah, sure. I mean, definitely yes to the above. I think, when I first had my accident, it was very important for me to really become the master of my disability. One minute you're able-bodied, the next minute you've broken your neck and you're paralyzed. So it was very important to understand what spinal cord injury was really all about before I could even think about anything else. It's like driving a car, you need practice before you can head down that freeway. So once I mastered the art of my disability, that's when I took a closer look into thinking, okay, so how's this actually going to work in reality? And I had a lot of time in that spinal unit. It was probably about 9 months. It was a lonely time, but a time that really was quite important for me to think about how it was all going to work. So I took a real keen interest into sort of rediscovering my identity when it was coming back out into reality, leaving that bubble, that very sort of protected wheelchair city bubble, and going back into real life. I took a real keen interest into personal styling. And prior to my accident, I used to run a bridal hair and makeup company. So I knew how to take care of all the above. But I had no idea about how to dress in a wheelchair. So, I learned everything about color, how to dress for a body shape in a wheelchair and style and things like that. And that really helped me immensely because I wanted people to see the real Heidi and not just the Heidi in a wheelchair. And obviously, going back in real life, looking for an accessible accommodation and then having to live with carers, which was really imperative to my day-to-day life. It still is, having a good team of people around me that help, with cooking, cleaning, getting me ready, things like that. And also having a car that I can wheel in and out of. All these little things really did help regain my independence, and also having a plan going forward and thinking, okay, so what do I actually want to do with my life?
What do you wish people would understand about engaging and supporting people living with disabilities?
I think for me, it's important that people see the person first, not the disability. Sometimes it is definitely harder than said, but it's, be that a smile or just a conversational piece. Like, for example, my wheelchair, I've kind of pimped up my ride, and the amount of people that stop me in the street and say, hey, I really love your wheels. I have these wonderful crochet wheels that a wonderful designer has made for me. And it's great because it's almost like the disability just disappears. And so I think that's really important, sort of breaking down the taboos around disability, because we're all real people, normal people. Just because you have a disability doesn't mean that we're any different.
What are some of the taboos you are hoping to disrupt?
Well, I think, once people start looking behind the curtain, they begin to realize that people with disabilities actually live very normal lives. I run a string of YouTube videos where one of them was actually breaking the taboos around sex and disability that overnight reached something like 600,000 views. So it's interesting because it's never really spoken about. And my partner and I, shared this wonderful, very sort of PG YouTube video all about our relationship and how it's still, regardless of a disability or not, you can still have a very loving relationship and sex life. And so it was really well spoken about, and I was invited to go on Steph's Pat Lunch, which is a British TV show that runs from Monday to Friday, sort of a chat show where I was invited to speak all about it. And just normalizing it, I suppose, so many different things to normalize, because like I said, once people understand that people with disabilities are no different to anybody else, really. And I think that's the main point to come across, and it's etiquette, how people can approach people with disabilities. I think a lot of people feel sometimes a little bit scared. Maybe they're not sure if they're saying the right things. You know, people are very conscious of being very politically correct all the time. But it's interesting. I'm currently writing a sitcom, a comedy with a bunch of script writers, which I can't say too much about, but it's basically, if you think about Sex in the City, you know, that really famous series. Yeah, so it's kind of like Sex in the City with very glamorous wheelchair users, and it's just, yeah, all the funny moments that we have with our carers and ridiculous situations that we find ourselves in, you know. So it's kind of putting a comedy spin on the whole thing, which I think is definitely well needed.
Can you describe your work breaking down barriers for others living with disabilities?
I think a lot of the stuff that I do with YouTube and Instagram, where I showcase my life with a disability, I mean, the whole point, the reason why I did that was to kind of inspire and empower and motivate other people. So I think by doing these videos and speaking openly about things, I'm answering perhaps unanswered questions. So, you know, getting dressed with a disability, eating, how to pick things up if you don't have the dexterity in your hands, and finding ways around living with a disability are all important things that need addressing. And I'm particularly more interested now in going to sort of accessible hotels and things. That's something that I'm really passionate about and want to kind of blog about. And just, yeah, having all these platforms to help other people, I think, in that way, it's important.
Heidi, you're an inspiration to so many people, especially all of us here at LanguageLine. I'd love to hear about what inspires you.
Many different things. I mean, I love traveling. It's still great to get out there and travel. I love all things kind of interior design. I love upcycling. I also like a really good cocktail on occasion.
Thank you, Heidi, for participating in this LanguageLine conversation. And thank you to all who join Heidi in inspiring and supporting others in their journey toward independence.
Thank you.